It's a plot to drop the IQ, fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, the holly suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. Hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Soul, where it's a special episode, an extra episode this week. You know, I've gone from doing like one show a week 7 years ago to like 2 shows a week shortly after that, and then 3, and then 4, and at some point I was doing 5, and now I'm back down to 2, but here we are with 3. So, you know, you never know what you're going to get from Rogue Ways, now Rogue Soul, and this week you've got 3 episodes, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm also back on YouTube again. I've been trying to remind people about that. So if YouTube is your poison of choice, then you can catch me on the old original Rogue Ways channel. So youtube.com/c/Rogue Ways. And everything should be there from now on too. And unless they decide to delete the account again, you know, we'll see what happens with those people. They're highly unreliable. But I'm over there as well. The reason I wanted to do this episode tonight is I still somehow have a lot of leftists in my social media sphere, which is good. I actually like to know what other people think and why, right? They seem to get mad though if I also say what I think and why back at them. Even in a very polite way. I think you may have experienced this as well. People will just attack you relentlessly, no matter what you say or how you say it, seemingly. Because for some reason, people think a difference of opinion is like an aggressive attack. So, you know, that tends to happen. But I have been seeing people post about the government shutdown and therefore the, you know, Affordable Health Care Act, as it's so called, Obamacare, as many people still call it, and illegal immigration versus legal immigration, and who can get what benefits for what. And part of why I wanted to do this show is because I actually had to go making sure I actually understood things correctly, because the way people are presenting this generally on the left is so insanely skewed that it made me question, like, maybe I really did not know. You know, I actually used to be a leftist. I've shared with you multiple times. So I actually used to hold all the opinions that they tend to hold. And I grew out of all of them through just pure logic. Just literally like learning facts got me out of being a leftist. But in this case, I was like, you know, maybe I'm misunderstanding or misconstruing. What I should just go make sure, right? And in doing so, this show came together. So if you are also either on the sort of left side of things and you think I am stupid and wrong, this would be a great show for you to see whether it's true that I am or not. And if you are on a sort of centrist or outside of the political spectrum thing, this will be a good show to let you know what it is that people are debating and talking about. And if you're on the sort of libertarian or right-wing side of things, you know, authoritarian or not, if you're over sort of that side economically, this will also sort of reinforce the things you probably already know. And so we'll, without further ado, we'll get into it a little bit deeper tonight on Rogue Soul. Of course, please do go to roguesoul.org, the place where everything I do is you can receive one-on-one sessions and healing from me. You can become a healer yourself if it's something that calls you. You can check out the powerful tools in the shop, the testimonials of the people who have been working with me for many, many years now, and check out the orgone in the shop. There's also a new class that I am offering. We just have finished up recently the first iteration of the Heart-Centered Healer course. It should be back about January 2026 or so, is what I'm guessing for those of you who are you know, waiting for that to be a part of that next class. But in the meantime, I have the money package course coming up. And this is a great class for anybody who is in any kind of service at all, especially spiritual, especially energy healing and that kind of stuff for sure. But it's actually good for anybody who just wants to learn about the spiritual aspects of money and how to deal with it in a spiritual way, especially in a way that unblocks your karma, your trauma, and your issues around money so that it opens up your abundance. And, you know, if I would have heard myself saying these things, you know, so long ago, I would have maybe shot myself in the face. But now I know just how true it is. You know, I had to do all this stuff for myself especially, like I said, with spiritual work. But again, this class is great for anybody. It is going to be geared slightly towards people who are doing spiritual service work or the like, but it's for anybody who wants to just up their money game, wants to make sure their karma, their trauma, like I said, is cleared, make sure they have these methods to work towards bringing in more abundance. And again, I had to do it for myself big time. And the second I did, everything changed. I had someone say to me recently, well, since you're trying to run your business and you want to be a healer, you should probably not say things out loud about political stuff because you're hateful. And I was like, well, A, I'm not trying. I've been doing for 7 years, right? And B, I don't want to be a healer. I was a healer way before I was ever having a business that was connected with that work. So it's a funny way to talk about things, but it's intentional with people like that, right? They're trying to diminish who you are, what you do. And I mean, honestly, I think it was said out of ignorance. I don't think they understand that I've been successful for 7 years, but a big part of the reason that I have be in this venture, in this business, in Rogue Soul, and you know, making that into what it is today is in large part because of the practices and the experiences and the attitudes and understandings that I'm going to share with people in this class. So it is actually true. It is actually real. It does actually work, and it totally matters. So if that calls to you, then come take this. We're going to be starting on the 16th, so a couple weeks away. That's there in the shop at Rogue Soul. Everything else is here too. Also, rogueways.substack.com, good place to keep in touch, good place to be made aware of things like the money package or other classes, the heart-centered healing class, events like the upcoming November 5th full moon blessing. That is coming up and for some reason isn't here. Oh, there it is. Full supermoon blessing. So again, if you were subscribed at rogueways.substack.com, you already know that. You're already signed up to come to the blessing. These things are really powerful influxes of energy. They're really beautiful. You go deep. You get really high levels of transformation. People have all sorts of transformation occur. Blessings bring miracles often, big shifts in life. And so really powerful to come. If you can come, join us on November 5th. For that full moon. It'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern. So that would be fantastic to see you there. But you would know that if you're subscribed to rogueways.substack.com at the free level, even if you subscribe at the paid level, you also get channeled messages and sort of the longer, deeper articles and things of that nature. Generous of Heart was the last channeled message that went up here. So that's there for you, those of you who are paid supporters. Thank you all who are paid or unpaid supporters at rogueways.substack.com. It is fantastic. And you get so much good stuff there. So thank you for doing that. One more thing I'll point out, I'm asking you guys for your help. The link is the first link below wherever you're watching or listening to this show. And that will take you to Kickstarter, where Johnny's next project is about to go live, actually, I think in a few days. And it actually helps him a lot if you just go there, log in if you've already done Kickstarter before, if you've ever supported a Kickstarter project or you've done your own Kickstarter, you already have an account, so you can just log in and just follow his project. Just following it is free to you. It doesn't do anything, but it boosts it up in the algorithm. It lets more people see it. It lets Kickstarter notice that it's got some heat behind it. And it's such a really easy way for you to support a really cool project. You might also find that you are excited about this project. It is a super cool project. And as you can see here, a lot of Johnny's art is going to be on display. It's a book that you get to keep for yourself. If you're a part of it, it's full of really genius work. And, you know, I'm biased, but it's also just true that this man is genius. So if you haven't yet got on that wave, it's definitely time for you to do so. So easily get there from my Substack, rogueways.substack.com. It's the most recent post, and that will help you help him. It'll be fantastic. So get everyone you can who's into it to do it. We really appreciate you. I know a lot of you did last time I asked. I just want to ask again because I know a lot of you haven't yet. This is your reminder to go do that. Thank you all. So we'll get into it today. So we'll start here. This is hilarious. This is the Babylon Bee. Of course, it's satire and, you know, kind of Onion-esque. And it says, Democrats vow to starve as many food stamp recipients as it takes to get free health care for illegal immigrants. And the funny thing is, it's not really that far off the mark. This whole government shutdown is sort of predicated around this. Democrats want the Affordable Health Care Act, or ACA, or Obamacare, to cover illegal immigrants. And if Republicans won't give it to them, they are not going to sign anything. And that means that food stamps, SNAP benefits, EBT benefits will not go out for November. So I actually thought this was true for October. It wasn't. It's actually November. So we still have a few days before people lose their minds and start rioting in the streets. And hopefully they won't. And hopefully it's just people being dramatic. But you can't imagine the amount of social media accounts, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all over the place, Twitter, where people who receive EBT, SNAP, food stamp benefits are threatening to go shoot up stores, to go steal from people who just bought their food from the store and brought it out to the parking lot to put it away, who threatened to go in mobs, in groups, to just steal everything they can from the stores and all rush out together. All of this violence is threatened by people if their food stamps go away. They also, almost 100% of them uniformly, are saying this is like Trump's shutdown or Republicans' shutdown. And even really seemingly rational people I know are saying things like, Republicans just don't want to fund food stamps, and they don't want anyone to have these benefits. And this is the old story. This is the old, party line divide we've been fed our whole lives. But it's not actually what's happening right now. What's happening right now is that Democrats want to force the country to pay for every illegal immigrant's health care. And if we won't do it, they won't fund the government. And generally, I'm like, good, shut the government down. Let it go. Like, I don't care. I feel bad for the troops. I feel bad for some people who aren't getting paid, and that's not fun. It's not great. But some part of me is like, let's prove to ourselves we don't really need a government. We could do better without it, or we could do better with a different type or whatever. But realistically, we do need things to continue and to be funded. And it's a pretty extreme way of kind of holding the country hostage. So Babylon Bee isn't far off the mark here. Say Democrats are essentially threatening to, starve out their own constituents. The people who are on food stamps in general are Democrat voters. So they're their own people, but also, unfortunately, the people who tend to vote Democrat and are food stamp recipients aren't always looking to really see what's actually going on. This has been true my whole life. And that's why I said, just through pure logic and having access to facts, made me leave leftism. It's just as I had to, as a logical person, leave because of the things I learned that are not necessarily outright told to you when you are a communist, a socialist, or a Democrat voter. People on the left tend to cycle through their own propaganda and lies with one another and reinforce these all. And they're all emotional appeals for the most part, and some are appeals to authority. And it's almost always these convoluted logical fallacies that keep people stuck in this mindset. And it's almost always a really deep emotional disease or level of disruption as well, are imbalanced. So, I talked about that in a previous episode. You can go check that out if you are confused about how mentally and emotionally unwell leftists tend to be, but it's true. So they don't really know. So what was interesting is people posted for me when I was, again, interacting with some of the leftists in my sphere. And I was saying, it's actually that we don't want to pay for illegal immigrants' health care. And they were like, that's not even possible, you fucking idiot. Just vitriol. And they posted this article. This article is from NPR. And it's a 2025 government shutdown. It says the GOP blames government shutdown on healthcare for undocumented people. That's false. So remember, they have all these euphemisms, and one of them is undocumented people. And another way of describing that is illegal immigrants, people who came here illegally. And so this is October 3rd. This is a little while ago, but it's still, what they're going on. And so if you read through this, it's like, White House and congressional Republicans say that Democratic lawmakers caused the federal government shutdown as part of an effort to extend healthcare benefits to undocumented immigrants. However, several independent experts interviewed by NPR note that claim is false. So I'm going to skip a bunch of this propaganda telling you why it's false, it's a distortion, it's not true, et cetera, et cetera. And here they get down to some brass tacks. So let's see. I thought it was right here. Health here it says US health coverage programs for immigrants are generally limited to those lawfully present. And that's usually true. And that's the lie that Democrats and leftists in general are still spouting today. It says Medicaid and CHIP, which provides low cost coverage to uninsured children and pregnant women, are restricted to immigrants with a qualified status. Qualified in quotes here, but qualified status, such as refugees and asylees, most of whom must wait 5 years before enrolling. That's true. If you actually look deeper into this, one sentence buried in the propaganda and BS of this article, then you start to understand what is actually going on. They don't go into any more detail than that in this article. So it says subsidized ACA, which is American, Affordable Health Care Act and Obamacare, whatever, marketplace coverage is available to these qualified immigrants, as well as others, including those with temporary protected status or certain work visas. And while Medicaid eligibility is limited to lawfully present immigrants, so all of that is what they're saying, but we are seeing the same thing around the whole world, this weaponized immigration, as we've been calling it, all around the world. And the United States is no different. So when they talk about refugees, asylees, and temporary protected status or work visa immigrants, they then immediately start calling them lawfully present immigrants. They can't actually call them legal immigrants because legally they haven't immigrated here. They're still here for some other reason than those who actually went through the immigration process to become a citizen, right? And that would be a legal immigrant who is now a citizen of the United States. That's what that means. So they can't say that. So they're saying lawfully present. And this is, again, it's like euphemistic. It's like lawyerese, right? Like lawyers speak to wrap this way around getting us to pay for illegal immigrants' healthcare without saying that we're paying for illegal immigrants' healthcare. That's exactly what's happening. And for some reason, you can't get this through to people, but we're going to go through it. And so you're going to see, if you haven't yet, or if you already know, you're going to cheer on, because I was looking for essentially a show like this or a place like this to just laid it out. So that doesn't seem to exist. So here, you have this, share it with people if you like. So we'll keep those in mind. Asylee, refugee, or asylum seekers, refugee seekers, temporary status individuals. So when I brought this up to the same people who posted this exact article, and I said, well, your own article admits what's going on, which is that these people were given temporary status, asylum status, refugee status, or certain visas after they came here illegally in an attempt to not only keep them here longer and let them stay and be Democrat voters, but also to get them all these benefits, which is what they came for. And like, no shade on them. I would do the same thing. I get it. And I also understand that then if I was caught and deported, like that was the chance I took, like that's what you do. Like I've also done many illegal things in my life because I thought it was what's best for me at the time. And if I got caught, I faced consequences. That's just reality, So I don't blame you for trying to be, this is the best country in the world. Like I get you trying to come here. No problem with you. I mean, kind of have a problem with you depending on who you are and why you came here and what you did, trafficking children, etc. Then we definitely have a problem. But you're genuinely just someone who is like, hey, let's try it. Biden's super easy with the border right now. And there's tons of benefits up there, but they're going to give us these statuses that make us, essentially safe to remain there. Let's go. Like I'd go. Wouldn't you go? For sure. So like, I'm not mad at them. But when I pointed that out to these people, they're like, no, you still can't. They still can't. And I'm like, your own article you posted said that. You posted it. You like NPR. You trust them. This article says that. And you still don't think that they're getting benefits. It says it in your article. So, I mean, people are not connected to logic or reality. They're definitely emotionally charged about this. They're not thinking clearly. And even when you use their own sources to point something out to them, they will often do that exactly what they did to me. Then the person whose post it was deleted it and told me I was hateful and shouldn't have a business because I'm not spiritual enough, which is just like the oldest. This is what people who aren't very well and can't understand me have said to me in the entire 7 years I've had this. Oh, you're supposedly spiritual. Like, oh, I'm not supposedly, like I am. It's just like, sorry, you're not feeling well right now. I hope you feel better for sure. So that's their own article. That's what that article says. Those are the statuses that are given to people who came here illegally in, perhaps out of the goodness of people's hearts, because perhaps because they genuinely believe they're asylum seekers or refugees or whatever. But as many of us who have looked deeper into this, like myself, and you likely know, that's not actually why they were given those statuses. That's not actually why. They were given those statuses as a weaponized immigration, as a way to create more blue voters and as a way to try to change red areas to blue areas, as well as get this bloated government machine that does not serve the normal citizen at all, but definitely serves a lot of really moneyed interests, and to keep it bloated and to keep a lot of people on the government teat as well. As my cousin reminded us today, if you knew her, if you could follow her on Facebook, she said something I've said myself, something that is, very true, which is, none of us should be on the government's teat. If you rely on the government for your food, then you're also on the government's control, under their control, and they can starve you out whenever they want. If you genuinely can't eat because the government doesn't support your food, subsistence, then you are a controlled, bought and sold, done for person. Like, you have no freedom anymore. And again, not opposed to people getting food stamps. If you can get them, right? Like, I get it. We've all paid into the system. You want to get some of your stuff back. You genuinely need it, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. But it is also true. If you genuinely can't make it in the world without that, you're done for. It is not a generally great way to live life, to rely on, especially the government. I mean, like, rely on a friend, rely on your family, rely on your church, rely on your community organization. Don't rely on the government. They control you now. They own you. And it's true. And if you can't wake up to that, I don't know. People are like, I can't feed my kids. I'm like, yes, you can. These people, there's so many people who are out there showing, oh yeah, I get $10,000 a month for food stamps. For food stamps? What do you have, an army living with you? Like, oh, I have 8 kids. Like, no, no, there's no universe in which you need that much money to feed your kids. None of it. It's all so broken. It's all so convoluted. I mean, there's plenty of other people who are like, no, I have like 5 kids and they only give me $100 a month. I get it. Don't pretend like the other people don't exist, though. Don't pretend like there aren't the people with the 8 kids who are getting $10,000 a month. They're absolutely happening. There's all kinds of fraud. We all know that. Who hasn't encountered someone trying to, oh, I'll buy your food for you, you give me the cash. Half price. I'll pay for all of that. You give me half of what it's worth in cash. Who hasn't seen that, heard about that, known that it happens? So many people who get these benefits aren't even using them for food. So stop with the, how are people going to eat? Like, oh, they'll eat. I mean, you're going to give them food, aren't you? If you're talking about this issue, you absolutely have already donated to your food bank. I know it because I've worked at food banks and I've gone to food banks. Like, I understand. I've donated to food banks. Like, I get it. Nobody's going to not eat. And because there's someone who's not getting enough money on food stamps, don't pretend there aren't people who are getting way too much, way too much. So all of that's happening. But back to this, yes, illegal immigrants are getting benefits. They're getting food benefits, they're getting health benefits, and they're trying to keep that encoded. So we'll continue here. This is from the Ways and Means Chairman Jason Smith, the United States House Committee. It says Democrats failed healthcare policies to shut down government to restore taxpayer subsidies for illegal immigrants' health care. He says Democrats using government shutdown in order to push for the restoration of taxpayer-funded health insurance subsidies for illegal immigrants, according to their own counter-proposal for funding the government. This is on a house.gov page, you guys. That funding stream was eliminated when Republicans delivered working families tax cuts that include no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security, as well as major health care reforms that expand access and flexibility while reducing fraud and improper payments in the system. And that's what people are mad about, by the way. It's the fraud and improper payments in the system. When they're saying, oh, the Republicans just want to reduce, funding to this, they want to reduce the program, maybe maybe, but what we're seeing so far is that they're actually reducing the ability of the people who are getting $8,000 a month in food stamps to continue doing so. The people who are taking advantage of healthcare system to continue doing so. And that's okay with me. I don't know who it's not okay with, but I don't understand that point of view unless you're like on the narcissistic sort of side, cluster B side of things, where you're just like, oh, we deserve anything we want because we said so. And so does anyone else. And anyone who tries to take that away is evil. I mean, then that's just your weird perspective. But if you're just a logical, rational person, like, how could you be mad about the reduction of fraud of your own money? It's your money, it's your government, your taxes pay for it. All the programs are funded by you. Don't you not want people to take advantage and rip you off? I don't want to be ripped off. He goes on to say, even the Congressional Budget Office recently announced that Republican reforms contained in the Working Families Tax Cuts legislation earlier this year would actually lower premiums for Americans because the fraud goes down. So you have to pay less, not just in taxes, ideally, but in premiums for your healthcare, which shot up because so many people were abusing, taking advantage, and defrauding it. Don't you want that? Didn't you say that you wanted healthcare to be more affordable, lower premiums, better quality? Well, here you have it, but you're mad about it because you think that you want to give healthcare to a bunch of illegal immigrants, which you pretend aren't illegal, and we'll come back to that again. But here we are. So Republicans delivered tax cuts to families, ensuring illegal immigrants will no longer be able to pocket taxpayer-funded benefits meant for American citizens. And Democrats have made clear they want to undo these reforms. So remember, this is all stuff that was done under Biden that now the Trump administration is undoing. So that's when people are like, oh, they're reducing the programs, they're reducing the costs, or they're trying to take away benefits from people. Those benefits weren't even there before Biden pushed them all through. And we see this over and over again. It's the whole fake thing about like he took down all the slave stuff and all the pictures at the parks, and like, but Biden put those up in places where slavery wasn't even the thing. It was just like random parks and public spaces, and all of a sudden there'd be giant posters of slavery, like disconnected and for no reason. So Trump took those down, and they're like, he's erasing history. Like, from the people who ripped down statues of alleged slavers. Like, you can't make up the lack of, they just say this stuff without any irony. They're fully hypocritical, just like no awareness at all. It blows my mind. But so they're not actually like reducing, before Biden, they're just going back to what it was. They're just saying, oh no, we're not doing all this extra money and all this extra funding and all these extra programs and all these extra, asylum seekers and refugees and whatever. We're just not doing that. So no, you aren't having your funds reduced. You are actually getting more money for your value. You're getting better premiums. You're going to get like less food stamp fraud. All of that is good for you. If you can understand, I don't know if people can or not. I had a friend that was like, I just want everyone to be able to eat. And I was like, you don't think that there's people who aren't going to eat. Nobody realistic thinks that. Again, have you been to food banks before? Especially around Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas time, they are overflowing. I went to one food bank in my life that didn't quite have enough food, and it was in the middle of like the summer. But like like that's the time where you're going to have the least amount because there's just not a lot of holidays and stuff. When people are feeling holidays and giving and whatever, and especially now that this is in everyone's face and everyone's talking about if people are going to eat enough or whatever, the food banks are going to be overflowing. Nobody's not going to eat. Dude, I grew up poorer than you can imagine. I say that I was poor, and then people are like, me too. And then they talk about their like, 2-story house and how they had 2 cars and whatever. And I'm like, we didn't have a home sometimes. We lived in a fucking box with like 6 people in it, 2-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house, tiny little guy, 500 square feet. And we didn't have food all the time. So like, I haven't eaten when I was hungry sometimes. So a big part of my trauma that I still work through to this day. We didn't not eat because we couldn't have food. We didn't have food sometimes because nobody could swallow their pride enough to go get some and ask for it. Ask for food stamps or ask from a food bank or manage money better or have it. I mean, there was reasons why we didn't have food that were not because it wasn't available technically in our community. So even having not eaten and even understanding that sometimes people really do need some food, I still understand like everyone's going to eat unless they choose not to. And that's a different scenario. So this is from, again, our Ways and Means Committee, the chairman himself talking about this. This is the Biden era programs and expansions of programs and inclusion of more people in programs that are being undone. And that's not something to be mad about. Unless you just want everyone on the government T and you actually believe that all of this stuff comes from just magical anywhere and that it isn't coming from you and your work and your pocket and you don't understand budgeting. There's a lot of reasons why you could not like this, but none of them are rational. So to understand different immigration statuses, asylum seekers are people who have fled their home countries due to persecution or fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. So everybody who came across the border under Biden, which we know were many tens of thousands of people, it was the highest we've ever had. It was considered a crisis even by people who love to let people across and, want more immigration or whatever. Even those people were like, this is insane. And a bunch of those people were like, oh, are you scared of your government or anyone in your country hurting you because of who you are? And they were like, yeah. Like, okay, well, then you're an asylum seeker. You're an asylum seeker if you're a gang member of some of the most violent gangs in the history of humanity that we know of. You're an asylum seeker because technically there's another gang back in your home that would technically want you dead if you were there. Yeah, but that was the whole time you were there. So you didn't need to come here to get away from it. You lived with it your whole life, and you're not here not being a gang member. You're here continuing your gang activity. So the whole thing is BS. What asylum seeker was meant to apply to is people who were genuinely being persecuted by their government in an organized way so they could get out. For example, the Christians in the Middle East and a lot of the places there in Syria, now that we totally screwed Syria over and took away, all of their hope for a decent life. Now Christians are persecuted there. Christians in Africa in many places, and any place where Islam is the rule, all the Christians there, they would be asylum seekers. People who just want to come here aren't asylum seekers. But the way that they're being talked about and the status they've been given under the Biden administration says they're asylum seekers. That's a problem. So you can say, oh, they have lawful status, so they're not illegal immigrants and they can get benefits. But that's exactly what we're talking about. They were actually illegal immigrants. They came across the border illegally, and then they were given this status falsely. That doesn't make them here lawfully, and it doesn't mean they should get your stuff. Conditional or permanent resident, these are people who are children or spouses of lawful permanent residents or U.S. citizens. Every 2 years, they have to reapply for that. That one makes sense. Again, if you actually have family here, you're actually married to someone here, and they're actually a citizen, and you're working towards immigration, you can have this conditional status, except the temporary and conditional status was given to anybody who could just say they have family somewhere here in the US. Well, that's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who probably have family here. And now all of a sudden they're conditional. They wouldn't have met that criteria prior to Biden, but under Biden, they were trying to get as many people in as they could and keep as many people here as they could. So they gave them all this status. refugee status, again, you're supposed to be from a place where there's war going on, where you're being forcefully resettled. Perhaps something in the environment happened, like this hurricane that's hitting Jamaica right now, or something else like that. Yeah, you can maybe come here. We've got a certain number of people we accept for refugees, but now we gave a status to people for all kinds of things, including climate refugee. Oh, has the climate been weird where you're at? Okay, well, come on in. Like, all of these people who were illegally here, who came here illegally, were then given these statuses just to give it to them. So we have all these different statuses for people, and a lot of them were played pretty loose over those 4 years. And so we have all of these people who came here illegally and who have been given these statuses. And so, yes, they're accessing services, they're accessing healthcare, which this is what the Democrats are trying to keep their access to, and why they refuse to fund the government, why there's a government shutdown, and why people aren't getting their food stamps. Yes, they can get food stamps. Yes, they're getting even more than that, because you and I, as citizens, have access to those things. We don't have access to the programs they have access to, because there's all these NGO networks and all of this money flooded in that they can also get access to, that is just specifically for immigrants, just specifically for legal or illegal immigrants of any of those statuses we just talked about, or the ones without any status that are just illegal still. Those programs also they have access to. So a lot of these people are not working or living their best lives, or being put up in hotels, have all of this food, have all of these visas given to them, all of these cards with all this money on them. People are like, that's not true. Dude, you can go find them talking about it on their social media. You can go find people interviewing them and then just showing them, yeah, here, this one I just get every month that has $5,000 on it. I can buy whatever I want. I'm living in this hotel over here. We get fed every day, 3 times a day. Like, this is not imaginary. So not only do they get your healthcare and your food stamps and other benefits, but they also get all those benefits. Why? Because they just walked across a border and a bunch of people were just like, here you go, take all this. Again, I would too. If you told me I don't have to work, you're going to give me $5,000 a month, $8,000 in food stamp, a hotel, all this stuff, I'd go do that. Heck yeah. But I don't get offered that. I've worked my ass off my whole life in this country and paid taxes, and I don't get that. So to qualify on the Affordable Health Care Act, in the marketplace, this is again from healthcare.gov. Immigration status to qualify for the marketplace. As August 25, deferred action for childhood arrivals or DACA recipients are no longer eligible for marketplace coverage. As of August of this year, that means before that, they were. So before that, DACA kids who are here because their parents brought them across illegally or not legal citizens, they had coverage under the ACA. This is one of the things that the Democrats are saying, no, we refuse to fund unless you give this back. It says, due to a court order on December 9th, 2024, if you live in one of the states listed below and have one of the specific immigration statuses listed, you're no longer eligible for marketplace coverage. So you were, again, eligible for this until it became not so. All of these different states and being non-citizens with certain approved employment-based immigration visa petitions who are transitioning from an employment-based non-immigrant status to a lawful permanent resident status. Family unity beneficiaries, people adjusting to lawful permanent residence, special immigrant, juvenile classification, children under 14. Immigration statuses that still may qualify, even today. Lawful permanent resident, again, these are people who have applied and they're going through the process. They've got their green cards, whatever, and that's cool, sure, have some benefits. But the asylee, the refugee, the paroled into the U.S., the granted employment authorization, which is one of those temporary statuses, individual with a non-immigrant status, including workers' visas, student visas, and deferred action status, those are all still able to get these benefits. So again, as I said, the asylee, the refugee, and the temporary statuses, those are just being handed out like candy. It's just sad for the people who are actually asylum seekers, actually refugees, and actually deserving of some of these temporary statuses. Then maybe they do need some of these benefits, and we've accepted them and said, yes, you can come here, and here's all of this proper stuff. And so, cool, I could get down with that. But if you just walked across illegally and you trafficked a bunch of kids while doing it, you're part of a cartel, and you said, yeah, I can't go home, I swear to God. And they're like, cool, you're a refugee now. And now you're just here raking in all this dough. And again, there's tens of thousands of people who are doing that, who have done that, who came across in that way under Biden. So people act like this is just black or white and you just hate immigrants, or you want to give them everything you ever had because God bless them. And these are the only two opportunities, right? And it's like there's a whole spectrum of things going on. And if you don't understand how complex it is, then you're ignorant. And it's okay to be ignorant. It's not okay to pretend you know while you're ignorant. And maybe you didn't know you were ignorant, and that's okay too. But then as soon as you find out you're ignorant, you just say, oh, wow, okay, I don't actually know what I'm talking about. Let me find out. That's how I left leftism. Again, is by saying, hold up, maybe I'm not sure about this. Let me look into it more deeply. And then finding out, oh, wow, I didn't understand any of this. That's, again, how this show was even put together, was me looking through all these things, being like, oh, yeah, okay, this is what happened. Word. Key facts about U.S. immigration policies and Biden's proposed changes. This is from Pew Research, again, trusted by the left in general. This is from 2022. It says, since President Joe Biden took office in 2021, his administration has acted on a number of fronts to reverse Trump-era administration-era immigration to the United States. The steps include plans to boost refugee admissions, preserve deportation relief for unauthorized immigrants who came to the U.S. as children, and not enforcing the public charge rule that denies green cards to immigrants who might use public benefits like Medicaid. So again, when Trump came in, he tried to sort of like reduce some of these things, and then Biden went through and changed them again. He's lifted restrictions established early in the coronavirus pandemic that drastically reduced the number of visas issued to immigrants. His biggest immigration proposal to date would allow more new immigrants into the U.S. while giving millions of unauthorized immigrants who are already in the country a pathway to legal status. And that's another thing that people have a lot of contention about, is like, well, let's just like make a pathway for the people who are here. But again, so you are a cartel member who trafficked children into the United States. You've been taking all of these benefits, not just from our government, our taxpayers, but from also other organizations this whole time. And now we're supposed to just make it really easy for you to become an actual permanent citizen? Why? For what benefit to who? What would be the benefit to you and to me to give those people access? Dude, and I've had people too, they've been like, oh, whatever, immigration. I'm like, well, what about all the children who were trafficked across the border by the cartel members? And they're like, you're a dark mind. Like, I'm a dark mind? That guy took a bunch of children across to sell them into sex slavery, and I'm a dark mind? It's dark-minded of me to notice evil happening, but you have nothing to say about the people committing it and empowering them to do so? That's bonkers. You're a crazy person. I get that it's overwhelming and sometimes you don't want to think about it, but again, then that's when you should shut your mouth about it, because you're not well enough to address the massive evil that happens. Okay, but don't pretend you know, and don't talk about it like you know. And don't pretend there's something wrong with me for seeing the problem. You gaslighting assholes. Ugh. And people say this all the time. Oh, we have to give these people a path to citizenship. Well, hey, genius, did you know there always has been one? There was never a time where there wasn't a path to citizenship. Oh, but it's so hard. Good. It shouldn't be easy, because evil people will come take advantage of it if it's easy, which is what we've just seen happen. The takers of the world will take whatever you give them. Oh, it's so hard. Well, you can still do it. And the people who have done it have some things to say about this. Here's another person who's speaking on this issue. This is from the house.gov. It is by the U.S. House Homeland Security Committee and Subcommittee on Oversight, Investigations, and Accountability. The hearing is entitled Case by Case, Returning Parole to Its Proper Purpose. And this is the immigration parole program was intended to allow a small number of otherwise inadmissible aliens to enter the United States temporarily on a case-by-case basis due to compelling humanitarian need or public benefit. The decision by the Biden administration to use parole to release an estimated 2.8 million otherwise inadmissible aliens into the country represents a profound distortion of the intent of the program. My testimony will focus on the fiscal consequences of this policy. The limited information available on the country of origin of parolees indicates that they are almost certainly a net fiscal drain, creating more in costs than they pay in taxes. This is primarily due to their low average education levels, which result in relatively low earnings and tax payments, not from low rates of work. Parolees' lower wages and education cause a large share to qualify for welfare programs, with perhaps half of households headed by parolees using one or more major welfare program. Allowing large numbers of less educated parolees to enter and remain in the country is very costly for taxpayers. 2.8 million people were granted parole during the Biden administration. 2.8 million. So people talk about, how many people came across the border under Biden? How many illegal immigrants are in the country right now? So again, let's include the refugee status, the asylum seekers, and the temporary status people. Let's include these parolees. Well, then if this person's right, it's already above at least 3 million. And people talk about it like, oh, it's like 40,000 people. Are you sure about that? Because again, all the euphemisms being used, all the little loopholes, and all the different ways of classifying this, there's a lot more people here that perhaps shouldn't be here than you probably ever thought. All right, and I will venture to say that the vast majority of people don't care at all if people are coming here and they're like productive and they're industrious and they're kind and they're attempting to be a part of, the way that our culture tends to work and respecting our ways of doing things and whatever. Just like if you traveled to any country, I would hope you would do, learning the language and all of that. Nobody cares. But that is not what we're seeing at all. I mean, yeah, those people are still there. That still exists. But we've had this massive influx of people who don't give a shit about you or the United States or the Constitution or this culture or the language or anything else. They're here because they're takers. They're here because you gave them a way to be here. Because the people who are dark actually, or evil actually, or looking to just gain for themselves actually, will always take that opportunity. They will always take it when they see it. If you haven't learned that about people who aren't well and who aren't on a heart center or upward in this life, I'm so sorry for you. You have really hard lessons upcoming. If you just open your door, all the vermin will run in. That's why we've got peepholes, and that's why we only let some people in. And our country is no different. Your bleeding heart desire to make sure everybody has anything that they want to take from you. I believe you actually have that. I used to have that true compassion too. What I also had was codependency and unhealed trauma. And you probably do too. I haven't met a single leftist who doesn't. And so if you were well enough, I would trust your judgment a little bit more, but you're not, and I wasn't either. So this person goes through all of that, like how many more. I was supposed to be, again, just a few people instead. It was 2.8 million. That's just one other. We didn't even talk about that status so far. And here's yet another one. So you can see again how many of these statuses can be used to be given to people so that you can call them lawful immigrants instead of legal immigrants or citizens, which they are not. And many of them did come here illegally, and they were given those statuses in order to be kept here longer and more confusingly. So Immigrants with this is again, this is from AI. Asked what is given to immigrants with temporary status, refugee status, or asylum status in order for them to access these benefits? Because people say, well, they don't have social security numbers and you have to have one. And I knew that wasn't true. So I wanted to clarify though, because I don't know exactly what the name is. I know there's employer identification numbers that you can use in place of social security numbers, but that's not what they would have, right? But what do they have? So I asked AI, it says immigrants with temporary refugee or asylum status receive an employment authorization document and an I-94 arrival departure record as proof of their legal status for benefits and employment, while those with asylum status are eligible to apply for a Social Security card once their status is granted. So yeah, some of them do get Social Security numbers. Some of them instead get these other documents with other types of numbers that work the same as a Social Security number. Maybe you've noticed when you've been filling out some forms, it'll say Social Security number or, and then it'll give you some other things. And those things are the things they use. So when people say to you, oh, they don't have Social Security numbers, they couldn't possibly get benefits. Again, probably just ignorant, potentially lying to you, because this is what's actually true. And so you can get refugee cash assistance. This is one of the things I was talking about that I don't have access to, but some people do. You get ORR funded programs, Office of Refugee and Resettlement funded programs. So again, something that you and I don't have access to. So again, a lot of these people are getting access to benefits you and I do have access to, and additional benefits. People are like, oh, they never take their benefits because they don't want to get caught. Okay, truly illegal immigrants often don't. And so that's cool. But as you can see, what's happened here is that many of the illegal immigrants were just turned right into lawful immigrants and given all of this access. Supplemental security income is also something they get access to. So those are just a few things. I looked at some of the articles it linked to, and I made sure that that seemed to be true, as I did with all of these that you'll see. How many driver license rings, I asked, we're giving out driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. And it said there's no definitive nationwide statistic tracking the number of driver's license fraud rings involving DMV employees that have been busted for supplying IDs to immigrants. However, in Florida of June 2025, they busted one. In Kentucky of August 2025, they busted one. In California and others from 2012 through 2015, they busted many multi-state criminal operations, giving these IDs out through the Department of Motor Vehicles. In New Mexico in June of 2012, in Michigan, Maryland, and Florida in April of 2005, in Connecticut in February of 2007, and that's just the recent ones. And those are just the ones we found out and were busted. And so people also like to say, like, well, they can't do so many things because they don't even have these legal documents that they need, like a driver's license, like a social security number. Well, yes, they do actually, like we just talked about, have those numbers or other versions of it that get them the same access. And plenty of them have these driver's licenses. And so we keep hearing about these accidents and these people who don't know how to drive and they haven't been actually taught to drive, but they were given this document and then some other organization gave them a car and now they're out driving and they're just running into things left and right because they have no idea how to drive. These big rig truckers are even being given these things. So if you could acknowledge that big rig truckers, which takes a special class and passing and license and all of that endorsement to get, if they could be doing this without the proper channels and documents, then obviously other people can get it too. Like, obviously. Yeah. Okay, so that's another way that people are getting these documents they're not supposed to have access to if they're illegal. Then I asked, given the fake IDs given to immigrants and the accessing of benefits due to their status as protected refugee or asylum seeker, which benefits are actually accessed by people? There's emergency Medicaid, there's short-term emergency relief, there's communicable disease treatment, there's emergency humanitarian services, there's K through 12 public education, there's WIC, Women's, Infants, and Children Food Supplement, there's refugee cash assistance, refugee medical assistance, mainstream federal programs like SNAP and Medicaid, refugee support services, eligibility for work and Social Security for some of them, state and local assistances, community organizations, limited work authorization, the SAVE program, which is a systematic alien verification and entitlements database, and other eligibility checks are run. But like we said, there's all of those ways around much of that, and everything I just listed is accessible to those categories of immigrants. So again, if we were talking about just actual asylum seekers, and this hadn't been made into a political fiasco by assigning that to all sorts of people that didn't deserve it, if we were just talking about actual refugees, and that wasn't a temporary status given to all sorts of people, or the temporary status itself, if we were just talking about those actual small numbers of people that used to come through under those statuses, I'm totally down with all these programs giving them all they need. If you're coming from Africa and you were just run out of your village by Muslims and you're a Christian and you're coming here because you're trying to escape really severe and evil persecution, by all means, have all the things. By all means. And if you walked up here from Guatemala because you heard that you could do some child trafficking, some drug dealing, and then get all of this free stuff, and I'm supposed to call you a refugee or an asylum seeker, no, thank you. No, thank you. I said, how many immigrants surged through the southern or other borders into the US under Biden, and how does it compare to other administrations? Total encounters. Now it says first, based on US Customs and Border Protection data, the number of migrant encounters at the southern border under the Biden administration has reached historic highs. So this is, again, from AI and search engines that absolutely want nothing more than to reinforce the leftist view of things. If you look at all the things that come through, they're all leftist, Washington Post, all of these CNN and NPR, and I never can find anything that's not from the left. So even asking the leftist AI and the leftist search engine these questions, you still get this answer. Like, I thought this show was going to be a little bit harder to do because of those roadblocks, but no, still here, still doing it. So historic highs. Significantly surpassing levels seen during the Trump and Obama administrations. A record number of migrants have entered the U.S. overall, legally and illegally, during the Biden presidency. So from inauguration to the end of his term, 2021 to 2024, 10.3 million migrant encounters, 8.3 million at the southern border, 11 million at the other borders. That's crazy. Also 2 million getaways, ones not encountered, but who got across. So these are just the ones we counted. These are just the ones that came through just right across, like right in front of people and didn't care. There's plenty more that come through in very hidden ways we don't ever know. And so even these 2 million getaways they're talking about, they're saying somebody saw them or something, but then they got through. Well, there's like the tunnels and there's like the boats that sneak. There's all sorts of ways people get across. Dude, the people who I knew who were illegal back in the day, because I lived in Washington, they're like, yeah, we just take a flight up to Canada and then we just walk across the border. Most of your northern border is just forest. Like, we're just going to walk across. And I'm like, oh, yeah, word. Like, I would too, again. So how many people get through that we didn't even know about? So we've got, let's just say here, 10.32. So we've got almost, we'll just say 12 million, to say nothing of those many, many millions that we just read about that were brought through on this parolee status. So like, I mean, how many millions? There's only supposedly about 350 million people in this country. So the numbers we're talking about, we're getting close to like 10%. If that's not an invasion, I don't know what is. And this is only under Biden, and these are just the ones we know about. And in every other administration, even like the left, even the Democratic, Obama, their God, Clinton, all this, they were also tough on everyone. They were like, yeah, no, we can't just have an open border and we've got to deport people. Obama deported more people than Trump. And still, people tend to, for some reason, pretend this is okay or normal, or that it's something we should shut down the government for and fight about. It's something we should have food stamp riots about, is this invasion that was made to happen under this, whatever Biden was, of a president. So, since then, we've had almost no encounters at the southern border. It's gone down to almost zero under Trump. And you ask people, oh, why did you come here under Biden? Because I knew I could, and because I knew I'd be taken care of. And you ask people, why aren't you going to go now that Trump's in? And they're like, because he's going to kick me out. I mean, they just know. It's just a matter of fact. Like, you were like, nobody invited them. Yeah, you did. They literally did. So Yes, they knew it was easy. They would be taken care of, and now they know they won't. And so it's changed. So all these people came across. We have so many people. And of those millions, how many were just given these statuses to become technically lawful and to be able to access these benefits? It's uncountable. And it by far exceeds every other administration, and not even including the parolees. It's the magnitude you can't even imagine, and this is what people are defending, saying, "We love immigrants here." Yeah, we do, and not like this. This is an invasion, and it's insane. And you're insane if you can't acknowledge that. But again, black and white, you love them or you hate them. Well, I don't hate them, and I do love them, and I won't allow them access to my things if I have anything to say about it. So, wrap your tiny mind around that. You're hateful. It is not hateful to not allow taking evil people from your stuff. You protect your home, your family, your children. That's the beginning of goodness, let alone not at all evil. I asked, why are people, this was just for fun. This was just a fun one for me. Why are people unaware that Obama deported more people than Trump? But here's the fun answer. It says this perception is influenced by differences in policy, a shift in media focus. That's the number one part, by the way, and the use of varying metrics for deportation numbers. While President Barack Obama's administration did deport more people in total over his 8 years in office than President Donald Trump did during his first 4 years, the comparison is complex and often oversimplified. It's not. He just did. It's technically possible Trump will catch up with him. It's technically possible, but it's not even close yet. And people are losing their minds. And I'm like, you love Obama. I haven't talked to a single person about this who's on the left who doesn't love Obama. But they would not criticize him for deportations, even though he did more of them, harder, faster, better. But it's all the media, actually. So when it says, well, there's some other things, including a shift in media. Oh, it's just a shift in media. If you didn't have all of these mainstream sources consistently harping on this, consistently lying about it, consistently misconstruing it, none of these people would even care. This is what I'm talking about. Everyone cares about Gaza. Everyone cares about Palestine. Good. I'm glad you're a compassionate person and you have a heart. Nobody cares about the Donbass region of Ukraine. Nobody cares. And if you talk to them about it, they look at you like you're an idiot and they hate you because you're poking holes in their love of Ukraine. You talk about Ukraine's torture of its own people, exactly like Gaza, Palestine, perhaps even worse for longer, but they don't care at all. But they don't care because the news didn't tell them to care, and that's all there is to it. They're not actually compassionate people. They're brainwashed people. Somewhere in their heart, they've got that love and they want to do good in the world, and that's real and true. And then they were brainwashed and they don't see their way through it. And they hate you for even trying to shed a tiny bit of light on it. And they'll call you all the names and they'll tell you all the things, including that you're not spiritual enough. And then they'll shit all over you and just not even see the beginning of the high irony or the hypocrisy. It's wild what they've done to people. It's wild. People you thought you respected. It says, and I asked, are there any examples of actual citizens being deported under Trump? And they say yes at the beginning, but then they go through all the things that make it not yes. So the answer is no. It says there has been misidentification, errors in processing, and people who are swept up in raids, and that's true. It says there are people who were detained but then released, and that's true. It says in some instances, meaning in one, U.S. citizen children were deported along with their mothers because their mothers didn't have any way to get their children anywhere else. Well, that's not mistaken deportation. That's you being a bad mother who is illegal and having kids or brought kids with you illegally to a country knowing that you could be deported and then being upset that you and your children got deported together. Would you rather have left them behind without you? I would hope not. So, am I supposed to be upset about that? I don't know. You sound like a bad mom to me. Government acknowledges that this has happened. There's some legal challenges, etc. So while they said yes at the beginning of the answer is actually no. So this is all the US citizens who have been caught up in Trump's immigration crackdown as of August 29th. And so this is a report that's trying really hard to make you hate Trump, hate deportations, be on the side of these, again, often cartel members, often just illegal immigrants in general, often child traffickers and drug traffickers, and just be on their side and hate Trump no matter what. So this is an article trying to make this case. And all they do is cover what I just shared with you, is a few kids who got deported with their mother when she was deported. That's it. That's the entire article. It's like 7 pages long, and it's literally just them telling you that. And so that's the best they could come up with. All the US citizens who've been caught up in Trump's immigration crackdown is the title of the article, and they just tell you about some children who got deported with their mom. That's it. That's it. That's the best they got. So then again, from DHS.gov, it says DHS debunks New York Times' false reporting. DHS does not deport US citizens. And they go through every single claim and they counter it. They say, including these claims that DHS roams the streets, courthouses, and workplaces demanding proof of citizenship from residents. They say no, their operations are highly targeted. They don't result in the arrest of US citizens. They do their due diligence. They know who they're targeting ahead of time. They go in and they get those people. A false claim is detainees are being held in immigration facilities overnight without access to a lawyer or a phone call. It says any claim that there are subprime conditions at ICE detention centers are false. In fact, ICE has higher detention standards than most US prisons that hold actual US citizens. That's absolutely true. If you've seen the detention centers for immigrants, they're like so much better than prisons are. So much better, which is great. I don't care at all. That's fantastic. I hope they have a nice time while they're there. By no means do we want people to suffer, even though they've made horrible choices and abused you and I's goodness. I still don't want them to suffer. They said they're provided with proper meals, medical treatment, opportunities to communicate with lawyers and their family. It says another false claim, Kenny Lainez Ambrosio was innocently detained during a traffic stop. It says on May 2nd, 2025, several adult male illegal aliens from Guatemala were arrested by U.S. Border Patrol agents responding to a request for assistance from Highway Patrol troopers conducting a vehicular stop near a place, whatever. During the encounter, Kenny was part of a group of illegal aliens that resisted arrest. So he was arrested. I don't know if you knew this, but when you resist arrest, you're arrested. Even harder. That's how that goes. Claim, Jason Brian Gavidia was innocently arrested during an immigration enforcement operation. Gavidia was detained on the street for investigation for interference and released after being confirmed to be a citizen. All of these are exactly like this. You can go through all of these and every one of them is exactly the same. So are you surprised if you get in the way of a completely legal, absolutely lawful operation by law enforcement and you get in their way and then you might be detained for a second? Is that surprising to you? Do you think that we shouldn't have laws or people enforcing them? I don't think you think that. I don't think anyone thinks that. Not any rational people, at least. So I said, how many children are potentially trafficked in the massive amount of illegal immigrants that came through Biden's borders? It says no official this is so sad, by the way. I can't even handle the people who don't care at all about these children. No verifiable account for the number of children trafficked across the U.S. border is available. However, government reports and congressional testimony have highlighted significant systemic failures during the Biden administration that left tens of thousands of unaccompanied migrant children vulnerable to exploitation and trafficking. It's not just that it left them vulnerable. They were being trafficked, and this administration allowed it and intentionally let them get away with it. Then all these people are like, Trump's a pedo. Maybe he is, but what do you call this? This is the most heinous empowerment of child sex trafficking anyone's ever seen in all of history. And you just roll over and forget it. You call me dark. You say that I'm not spiritual. Do you know the number one most spiritual thing you can do is protect children? Children, little humans. And if you can't do that or look at it or see it or care about this massive problem, you are broken. Something is wrong with you. Call to action, get your shit together and wake the fuck up, dude. You have been brutally used, and now you're sitting here reinforcing it over and over again, pretending that it's good. It's insane. You're insane. Lost contact with children. As of February 2025, report from the Department of Homeland Security Office found that under the Biden administration, hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied migrant children were effectively lost by government agencies. HHS lost track of more than 85,000 children. 85,000 children. You can't even comprehend that many children, and that's how many they lost. Nearly 300,000 children were documented as having unserved notices to appear for their court dates, leaving authorities with no knowledge of their whereabouts. If you think that there's people who brought children across and then just like, oh, whoops, we didn't go to the hearing, guys, like, shucks, then you're retarded. You are stopped from acting. You are broken inside. That's separate from the 85,000. So now we're up to 385,000 sex trafficked children that we know of just in those 4 years. Inadequate vetting of sponsors. HHS was reported to have placed tens of thousands of migrant children with inadequately vetted sponsors. Many of them, I have a hard time talking about this. Many of them called a hotline, though they were given a number when they were put with their child rapist traffickers. They said, call this number if you have trouble. And they would call and call and call. And there was hundreds of thousands of messages begging for help, talking about being raped, talking about being abused. And nobody ever answered or called them back or did anything about it. Evil. You're evil if you support that. I don't care if you think that, like, oh, people should have some food. Like, kids shouldn't be raped. I can't believe I live in a time period where idiots get to pretend like this is okay somehow, and then call me names. Call me a Nazi, racist, hateful, all sorts of things, and they're just letting kids be raped. And nothing can get through to them because they're so delusional. God help them. I'm not even gonna go on. It's so dark, but we got the big bulk of it. Obviously, all of those children have been harmed deeply, and there's no way to make up for that. That's what you all did. If you supported this in any way, that's on you. You did that. Don't pretend, "Oh, I didn't know." Well, fucking know before you make decisions and talk, you stupid fuck. It actually matters. It actually has effect on actual people's actual fucking lives. You just go out and you just talk shit on the fucking internet and you just say stupid shit and you never think and you never research and you never listen to people who are trying to fucking tell you a goddamn thing because you're fucked. You're stupid and you're fucking broken. And I always go off on these goddamn rants because I can't fucking, because I see you just throwing kids off a fucking cliff and just being like, let's have a latte. Oh, by the way, you're a bad person. Oh, I'm a bad person. Okay. Whatever you fucking need to believe, you delusional fucks. Holy shit. I asked, what is the extent of cartel influence, especially via illegal immigration into the US, especially considering the vast surveillance networks they have installed in our country? And it says drug cartels exert extensive influence over illegal immigration and have established sophisticated networks in the US, including in cities like Los Angeles, to support their criminal activities. They've evolved from simply smuggling drugs to become major players in the lucrative and dangerous human smuggling and trafficking trade. Yeah, like we were just talking about, like all those kids, that wasn't an accident. That was all very intentional, planned, and made so much money for the most evil people in the world. They were just going through, and again, you're not gonna hear about this if all you look at is NPR and CNN, you brainwashed fucks, but they were just going through Los Angeles and showing this extensive surveillance network that takes so many highly trained individuals to discover and dismantle, and that's just in one city, and that's just what we can get our hands around. That's just one cartel in one city in our country. This is an extensive surveillance system. This is as extensive of what you imagine the government has on you. Some random cartel from some other country whose pastimes include torture and child rape have in your city because you let them come in and do this. And you pretended like they were refugees and asylum seekers and deserved all your benefits. You sorry fucks. I get a little tired of catering to people's broken fucking hearts. Where I'm like, I get you're coming from a good place. Okay, but you're not if you're so stupid that you empower evil. Just because you think that you love people and want to help them doesn't mean you are. So you have to actually know what the fuck is happening. People are like, "Where's your sources?" Well, just go through this fucking video and see all the .govs and all of the fucking research and all the Pew, all the fucking NPR, and all the multi-varied sources I brought together to weave this picture for you, you stupid shit. They think they stopped listening when I first called them delusional and broken, like, back at the beginning of the episode, but this is my therapy, right? And it's for you all too. I hear you telling me to go off, queen. This is your therapy too. I know. I know. Uh, we all get our therapy in this way. This is Nicholas who says, "Had this argument today, unfortunately." Yeah, dude, I am sick of this fucking argument. I'm so fucking sick of it. It's not maybe at some point, thank you, digital apparition. Maybe at some point it was this simplistic as people want to make it, right? Maybe at some point it was really about like some people just didn't like immigrants and some people did, and all of this stuff. It is not that anymore. This is 2025. This is fifth generation warfare. This is nonlinear warfare. And there are multiple non-governmental fronts that are attacking at the same time with similar interests that work together. This is complicated. But when hundreds of thousands of children get trafficked, oh my God, that's on you. That's on you. So yeah, they go through all these details of this fucking cartel, extensive technology, sophisticated operations, broadening criminal capabilities. Yeah, it says they operate in at least 1,286 cities across the US. That was from 2009. You think it's a bit more since then? Yes, it obviously is. Uh, and people act like that's the other thing. They're like, "Well, you don't get to judge gang members," and I'm like, "Oh God." Yeah, I do get to judge people who tattoo their face after they torture their victim to death. I do get to judge them. Absolutely, I get to judge them. I get to judge them and say, "You're not welcome where I'm at." I get to judge them and say, "If we didn't have laws around and you came and threatened, then it'd be Wild West and you'd be dead anyway." Yeah, I get to judge you and I get to protect myself and I get to protect my community. I get to protect my children. I actually get to protect any children from anywhere in the world because they're children. So yeah, I get to judge you and protect. And the people who told you not to judge and not protect are not the people who are on your side. So I was very moved and, I actually do like Steven Crowder, which I never would have thought I would have said just a few short years ago, but he's funny and, he might be abusive to women, but I'm not his wife. So I watch his show and it's makes me laugh. It's also very informative, but he had Tom Holman on. And Tom Holman is, they call him the border czar. And so he runs sort of these operations of targeting people for deportation and also keeping our border secure. And when he was talking to Tom Holman, one of the things that stood out to me was and this is an AI summary of that interview that he did on Steven Crowder's show, but he talked about his emotional toll And he cried, and he's cried in other interviews too. And it's hilarious to me because the people who are, again, generally leftist would generally say that Tom Ullman is a toxically masculine, white supremacist, racist, bigoted, all the other things. But here he is crying in public on air. Is that toxic masculine? Because I thought that's what you guys wanted. So because he's a big man and good enough to cry on air, shouldn't you be loving him? Isn't that one of your requirements, is that men cry? And then therefore they're loved more by you because they've met your standards, right? So your toxic femininity was enough to, decry them. But then when they finally do cry, you're going to still just continue to hate on them. Yeah, because you're emotionally broken. But he cries. And the reason he cries is because he has seen over decades firsthand children who were brutalized in ways that we can't even imagine. And he's seen it over and over and over again. He's seen women who were trafficked and brutalized in ways we can't even imagine. And he's seen it over and over and over again. He has seen what these cartels and what these gang members do to actual people over and over and over again. And you cannot live through that and retain your real heart without being broken by it. We call it secondary trauma, and it destroys people. And it has destroyed Tom Ullman. And he still refuses to give up because, like most good people, he wants to protect the innocent, the children, and the women from these horrible predators who have weaponized this immigration against all of us and have been protected by you and your ignorance. So you are the reason why that's happening. And he is one of the people who's suffering despite you and for the benefit of those kids and those women. So go fuck yourself. And finally, I ask, do immigrants ever oppose immigration? And yeah, they do. And there's a pretty lame summary of some scientific findings on this. They had to do science about it, right? You can't just know things, ask people, or like see reality, but you have to do the science. So they did the science, and they questioned all these immigrants. And they asked them about immigration, and most of them were totally for, legal immigration, and more than half of them were against illegal immigration. And they literally talk about, like, this was so surprising to us because we thought, because they're immigrants, that they would love all immigrants all the time. I wonder why. And they attribute this because they're scientists, I guess, because they're out of touch, because they can't think straight. I don't know. They don't have street smarts. They just have book smarts. They don't have wisdom. They just have, logic. But they say it's because the legal immigrant is privileged and generally has enough money and a stable life and house and all this. And they look at illegal immigrants, and there's a question about whether or not they'll be educated, or whether or not they'll make enough money, or whether or not they'll be a drain on the system. And so they worry about that. And so they wonder. And so they say, maybe we shouldn't have illegal immigration. And like, this just proves that's cool. That's also probably true. And there's probably people who definitely think that, but you could have just asked them, while you were doing the study, because if you go out on the street and you go to any of these protests where people are talking about immigration, left or right, either way, and you find some of these people there, a lot of times you'll find legal immigrants that are wearing a Trump hat and who are saying no immigration or deport all these illegal people. And they'll say, I immigrated. So you can ask them, you can say, why don't you support all immigration? They'll say, because I did it the right way, and so can anyone else. Why would I support the people who cut in line, who jumped ahead, who just got in without even having to try, when I went through the actual way and I learned all of the culture and I learned the Constitution and I learned all of these things so that I could be in the place that I love? I worked for it. Why would I like when someone else just got all of that for nothing? Yeah, you could just ask them and they'll tell you that. And it's true. Why would you like that? Why would you support that? If you love this country and you worked to get here, Why would you be down with a bunch of cartel gangsters bringing in a bunch of trafficked children, women, and drugs and just getting everything for free and given these statuses that give them access to all of these benefits? Why would you like that? Why do you like that if you're a citizen? You didn't even have to immigrate here, but you just want to tear it all apart? You just want to tear it all down, tear it all apart, give everything away, let the cartels move in, let them install all their surveillance, let them continue to traffic all of these hundreds of thousands of children in to destroy their lives. Let that all go down. Let them rape all of your systems, take all of your benefits, do all of that. Why would you do that? Nobody says no immigration. Nobody says you can't have asylum seekers or refugees. Nobody says that. Almost everybody says do it the right way. And until you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Glued to them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, a holly suggestions that a flicker rates a camouflage of folly. Attempt a mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp proceed is mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down